Hi, this is Zeke with ObJob Fix. Today's project is to see if we can fix something for $7.99 plus a few shop supplies. This is a tray folding stand with dragon heads, Chinese style. This is going to be a lesson in using epoxy to make a repair, and also a lesson as to why not to buy anything that's been previously repaired. Let me show you some details. First off, there's this. This piece was previously broken off. This is the piece. And it wasn't glued on tightly, meaning that the grain didn't match the grain very well. And I don't know if you can see any residue. I've been scraping on it, but it just doesn't want to find a home here. So that's one reason to use epoxy. Otherwise, I would use a hide glue. But I'll sort of average this in until it feels good, and then I'll go ahead and use an epoxy there. It'll probably be tinted. The other thing is over here. Now this piece had been completely broken off, and I don't know why there's a piece missing, but when you run your finger over the places where the two pieces come together, it's not even, and that can't be that hard to do, especially if it's a clean break and you've got the pieces and there's nothing in there to keep it from setting in closely, broken fiber to broken fiber, if you will. So we're going to, because we have no piece of wood, we're going to use some dark colored epoxy and fill in this area, and then very slightly pare off the edge there. I'm going to try not to have to do a whole lot of sanding here and then have to blend all this in. I'd like to have a line there less than 1/8 of an inch wide, and good color here, and then just be able to take care of any surface defects with a minimal amount of touch-up. So that's going to be the goal, and we'll get started right now. So in the next 3 shots here, you're going to see me using the flat side of the chisel as a guide, and I'm just going to use a slipping type of motion in order to try and level the one piece with the other piece. This way the actual crack between the pieces will be minimalized. You have to be careful here. This one's going to go real easy. There's just a little bit of an offset there. It's a very sharp chisel. I've got it dead flat on the arm of the leg, and that's it. It's nice and smooth. That one's ready for shading. One more time here. This one's kind of close to the head, but I was just going to do a little bit to it to see if I could blend it in. Now I'm waxing a piece of metal here. I'm going to use it as a backer. You can see that the corner is missing, and what I'm going to use is going to be something that is kind of liquid. So I'm going to be sort of pouring it in there. And so I'm going to use this as a dam. And I'm going to hold it on there with a piece of tape. That happens to be some pretty strong tape. But it doesn't matter. I'll tell you, packing tape works really well when you're doing stuff like this. But I decided to use this because there was a lot of irregular surfaces, and wherever it's touching, that's what it's gonna hang on to. So here's a 2-part epoxy. I mean, just need to get equal parts out on a little piece of glass there. It can be anything flat and smooth that you can clean up. I like to use the glass because I can use it over and over and clean it up with a razor blade and acetone. Don't always have to go looking for something smooth. I don't like using paper or cardboard because I think that sucks some of the moisture out. Now what I have here are some dye powders. That one's just dead black, but the piece itself is not black per se. It's dark, but it's got a little bit of a brown tint to it. So I'm going to put just a very, very small amount of that cayenne in there. I'm just guessing, but it turned out pretty darn close. Yeah, I have to mix this pretty thoroughly. I mean, not only do you want to get the powder well distributed, but you've got to get the parts A and B perfectly distributed, or you're just going to have some spots that never cure. So I'll keep mixing here and get ready to put it into the piece. I know it seems like a long time, but that's what it takes. It's a 5-minute epoxy and you spend 2 minutes mixing it. So the first piece I'm going to do is going to be that little crest on the dragon's head, and I'm going to try to just slide a little in there. Now I could have used something that they call thixotropic. That would make this a little bit less runny. It was marginal the way I was using it, but the piece was also fairly close, so whatever squeeze out that came out, I was able to kind of pick it up here with the Q-tip. Had there been much more of a void in there, I think I would have made it thicker, but get this in a final position and then quickly throw a couple pieces of tape on it, and that'll hold it in place until it's dry. That's only 5 minutes. You don't really want to put a lot of pressure on it after 5 minutes, but you don't need the tape anymore. This epoxy is a little shinier than the actual finish of the table base, so you don't want it to show any more than what's necessary. Well, now I've laid it down, and we're going back to where I built that little dam. I'm going to mix up another batch. You don't have a lot of working time, so you might as well figure on doing this in batches. So this time I'm going to use a little cup, and I'm going to make it the same consistency because it seems like it poured pretty well and flowed out pretty well, so I don't think it needs to be any thicker or any thinner. I'm going to try and add the same ratio of powders and get the same color. Now, once again, we're going to have to mix this very, very thoroughly. Take at least a minute. Okay, it's been a minute. I'm going to see if I can pour some of this down into this pocket of wood. Now, I've intentionally let my Q-tip there, my cotton swab, kind of deteriorate. I'm going to purposely leave some of those fibers down in this repair. This is going to add a little strength, give a little bridging. So I'll just take this X-Acto and just kind of pull that stuff off of there. I could have prepared some cotton ahead of time and had it ready, but this was already saturated from me swishing the Q-tip around in the little cup. So now I just need to make sure that I cover the entire piece and get it all the way to the end there. And it won't matter if it's a little proud. As a matter of fact, I'd have it a little higher than lower. I want to make sure that I get it all the way out to the end and get all of that bare wood covered with this tinted epoxy. I'm just using a little bent smooth tool here, just kind of tamp it down, work the air bubbles out, bring that last little bit of strands right over there to that point. I'm going to take just a little bit more here to get it full. Sure doesn't look like I mixed up any too much, does it? And you can see it kind of self-levels there. Without the cotton fibers in there, I don't know where it would have run to. I think that may have helped kind of contain this, but there's no doubt that there's some added strength by having some reinforcement in there. Think fiberglass in a boat or something like that, which has got the resin and then the fiberglass for the strength. All right, what I've done here, I've set up a couple of razor blades, and these are, I'm using these as guides. They're pretty much level with the sides of the leg. And I'm doing this so that I can take another razor blade and run it back and forth along here and not gouge into the existing wood. I just want to take off what's sticking up there. Still just a little soft enough. I'm going to take a new razor blade and just use the edges of the blades taped to the leg as a guide and just slowly pare this off. It has a tendency to tear, but if you keep the razor blade nice and clean and sharp, that would be the result right there. So I'm trying to avoid to sand this. That's the point of this. If I start sanding this and blending this, then I'm just going to have that much more that I'm going to have to blend in, and I'm really trying to minimize the work that needs to be done to this to put it back in service. I've pulled that piece of metal off, and this is the shape that I was left with. And as you can see, there's a little bit of a groove that runs along through there, which I wasn't able to put into the metal. So I'm just going to have to be real careful here and see if I can kind of just carve this in. It's probably been a half an hour now since I first mixed up the epoxy, so it's still somewhat carvable. Anything else I need to do, I can go ahead and do with a wax stick. I'm going to use this little half-round file here and see if I can crisp up that groove just a little bit. And it does a pretty nice job. There again, there isn't a whole lot there. And any excess that's there, I want to get rid of. Much better. Just going to round the corner a little bit, so it isn't such a sharp edge. Remember, this is the structural part. This was broken. It was strong. It was misaligned. There was a piece missing. So this was probably the best way to approach this. I don't know what it was glued with before, but it felt pretty strong. And I think if I'd have tried to re-break it, I just would have made it much worse. So I decided to work with what I had. I'm just going to take a little bit off the corner there. I'm getting down into the wood. What I'm going to do here is just spritz this with a little bit of shellac. I'm just using it as a primer, and I'm actually going to wipe it off. I just want whatever area it wants to soak into, fine. Whatever area it wants to wipe off, fine. I just want to get it sealed up a little bit, and it gives me a little bit better idea of how smooth it is. I still don't want to sand it if I don't have to. Now the idea behind this project was to do the minimal amount of touch-up. In other words, instead of sanding this entire area level and having to shade all of this in, I wanted to minimize what I would have to color in. I've got the same situation over here on this side. It's just a small stripe there. It's pretty level. So I wanted to see, I've got about $500 worth of touch-up powders. We've used these powders before and mixed them with a little lacquer or shellac, whatever. But for $7.99, you can get a basic touch-up kit. And I've never used one of these. Let's see what it's got. It's got 6 colors of markers. Black, oak, maple, cherry, mahogany, walnut, and it's got 6 crayons and a little sharpener. These would be your fill sticks. I'm not sure whether you use these hot or cold. I think you can do both. But what I have here is a piece of mahogany, which is very similar to what this folding table stand is. These usually came with a brass table, and they were just stood up in the corner and they were used as an occasional table. But I don't think it's black, but I don't think the mahogany is going to be dark enough. Well, here's the walnut. So let's see what the walnut looks like here. Let me zero in on the part that I'm going to work on. Bring that a little closer. That's not bad. Probably going to need a little shade staining, but just following the part that I chiseled off, that's not bad at all. I noticed if you go over it again, it gets darker. So this does build up. And I'm pretty happy with that. I think it's going to need, here's the black. I think it's going to need just a touch of black. This stuff dries very quickly, so it's not moving around much. I think I could do that with a little bit of alcohol or perhaps some thinner. Let's move over to this other one here. This one's real skinny. I'll start with the walnut. Just stay right there on the raw wood. I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but it's a little light. Now, any imperfections, I can use the wax stick on. The point here is that there are probably 75 colors that you can buy of this stuff in various brands. But you may not need to do that if you just got one job. if you need to take care of. Now this one I'm going to go back over it with the walnut and see if I can move that black around just a little bit. Well, I don't know about you, but that looks pretty good. Here's some damage up here that is just nothing broken, just got scraped. And it's not very smooth, so I should take this stuff. So I'm going to have to get a little brush to get up in there. But that was the idea behind doing this. You can see with the flashlight, I can see the areas that need some additional toning. I'm just dotting it in there. So yeah, I think the conclusion is for $7.99 at a craft store, maybe even at a dollar store, you could pick this stuff up for next to nothing. I don't know. I think that's going to work. Next step up will be cleaning all of this. It's still dusty. I never bothered to clean this down before I started working on it. Now, if you want to know how I clean old, dusty, dry furniture from the attic or the garage, you want to watch this part. Most of the time, I'll use an orange oil cleaner. It's usually in a cream form, like a hand cleaner. In this particular case, I'm using an oil soap. I don't like to use that much water, but it's a lot of intricate carving there, and the dust is well down into all the little grooves and whatever, so it needs something a little bit more fluid. Now here, as quickly as possible, I'm going to use some distilled water in order to get the soap off. I want to get this dry before the water has a chance to get down in the wood and cause problems later. What I'm using here is just a little compressed air in a can. It's kind of an expensive way to go, but it was handy. So again, I wanted to kind of get that water out of there before it had a chance to go down inside the finish. Now the next step is to apply some wax. This is a walnut colored wax. I'm going to put it on very liberally. I'm not going to set very long while it's still kind of mushy, and I'm going to use a stiff brush to kind of buff it out. Okay, after spreading the wax around real well and letting it set for just a few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and take a brush and just polish this. Just polish it as much as I can. Earlier in the video, I said I had about $500 worth of supplies there, and a couple of totes that I have, and I can take them with me, as I mentioned, if I need to do some touch-up on site somewhere. And I'm going to finish this up here, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go take a look at these various supplies. Well, these are some of the wax sticks, and over here are some of the markers, a couple layers of those, more sticks, more markers. Down in here there's some spray cans of clear and toners and sandpaper and Scotch-Brites and cotton balls. And here's a whole case of toners and clears. This is what I'm talking about when you can get enough of this stuff that you have a complete kit to go out. Even the lid has Q-tips, paint brushes, Some more wax sticks. On this side, razor blades, brushes. And that's not it. There's another case. It's got a little airbrush in it. More rags, solvents. This is all compared to a $7.99 kit. Well, it's time to put a wrap on this project. I kind of lost track of what I did and where, but I suppose that's a good thing. By the way, I just made a quick welded frame. I don't have a top for this. That one right there is the long, skinny split that I filled in. I believe this side right here is the one where the chunk was completely missing. So we used the epoxy and filled it in and then blended it. This would be the side where the ear was glued on. Probably all right for just an occasional use. Folding table stand, if I can find a top. Thanks for watching.